Your hands are shaking and you don't even know it. Not from cold, not from fear, from effort. Because right now, mid-prayer, your fists are clenched so tight your knuckles have gone white, and you've been holding that grip for years, calling it faith. Here's the sentence nobody wants to hear. The reason heaven feels silent isn't that you're praying too little. It's that you're praying with a closed fist, demanding heaven fill a hand that never opens. You know this feeling? That prayer where you laid out the terms, God, if you do this, I'll do that. God, fix this and I'll finally trust you. It felt like devotion. It was actually a contract. And contracts require a closed fist gripping tight, making sure the other side signs before you let go. This is not a lecture about doing more devotionals. This is about the muscle in your hand you've forgotten how to release. Think about what a closed fist can actually hold. Nothing new. A fist that's already full cannot receive anything else, not a gift, not a hand extended toward it, not bread placed in it. The fingers are locked around what's already there. Fear, control, the outcome you've already decided is the only acceptable one. And you've been holding that fist up toward heaven, calling it prayer, wondering why nothing new ever lands in a hand that was never open to receive it. Somewhere between childhood faith and adult exhaustion, you started treating your relationship with God like a negotiation table instead of what it actually was, a return home. You started counting the red lights you hit, the setbacks, the disappointments, quietly building a case like a lawyer preparing evidence, trying to prove leverage in a courtroom where you were never the judge. But here's the part your body already knows, even when your mind doesn't. A clenched fist held up for long enough starts to cramp. The muscles burn. The grip that was supposed to protect you becomes the very thing exhausting you. That ache you feel isn't distance from God. It's the physical cost of controlling something you were never designed to control. And this is where it gets uncomfortable because the pattern runs deeper than bargaining prayers. Sometimes the manipulation wears religious clothing, the extra hour of pleading, the tears positioned as proof of sincerity. The scripture quoted back at heaven like a legal citation, you said you would, so you have to. It feels like devotion. It functions like leverage. And a fist wrapped in worship language is still a fist. There's another version of this you might recognize even more. It's quieter and it hides better. It's the fist that grips not through demands, but through withdrawal, the silent prayer that says, I'll trust you again once you prove yourself. That's still a closed hand. It's just closed behind your back instead of raised toward heaven. Control doesn't always look like desperation. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like a slow, careful retreat disguised as patience, when really it's just another way of refusing to open your hand until the terms are met. There's a reason this matters more than it seems. A closed hand cannot be held. Try it, reach for someone's hand while your own is balled into a fist. There's no connection possible, only collision. That's what a controlling prayer life does to the relationship it's supposedly nurturing. It doesn't draw you closer. It creates friction exactly where intimacy was supposed to happen. And this friction doesn't stay contained to your prayer life. It spreads. The same grip that clenches during prayer is the grip that clenches in your relationships, in your finances, in your plans for tomorrow that you refuse to hold loosely. Once your hands learn to close instead of open, they close everywhere. That's why this feels bigger than a prayer habit. It's a posture that has quietly taken over how you hold everything, your future, your healing, your identity. Think about the people around you who have tried to give you something during a season like this, comfort, help, an answer you weren't ready to hear. Notice how often you deflected it, redirected it, insisted you were fine while your hands stayed exactly where they were, closed. That's not coincidence. A hand trained to refuse God's gifts is the same hand that refuses everyone else's. The posture doesn't discriminate. It closes toward heaven and toward the people heaven sent to help you at the exact same time for the exact same reason. Now here's the reframe that changes everything, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. You were never hired for a position that required you to negotiate your way into approval. You were adopted. Full legal transfer, complete and irreversible, into a family where the inheritance was already settled before you ever opened your mouth to ask for anything. A child in a family that has already claimed them doesn't need to draft contracts with their parent to get fed. They just open their hand. That's the difference between religion and relationship, stated in the plainest terms possible. Religion negotiates, family receives. So why does the fist stay closed anyway, even after you know all this? Because opening your hand means admitting you can't control the outcome. And that terrifies something in you that's been running the show for a long time, the part of you that learned, somewhere back in a season you'd rather not revisit, that if you didn't grip tight, everything would fall apart. Burnout does that, anxiety does that. A long stretch of disappointment does that. It trains your hands to clench by default, even in worship, even with your eyes closed, even when you're whispering the most sincere words you know. Here's what almost nobody says out loud. Your grip was never really about God. It was about fear wearing the disguise of diligence. Somewhere along the way, you confused holding tight with holding faithfully. But faith was never measured by how hard you could clench. It was measured by whether your hand was open enough to receive something you didn't manufacture yourself. But here's the physical fact that changes the entire posture. An open hand isn't a weaker position. It's the only position capable of receiving anything at all. Every gift in history has been placed into palms that were open, never into fists that were fighting to stay closed. This is the moment the whole thing reorganizes. Surrender was never about giving up. It was never weakness dressed in spiritual language to make defeat sound holy. Surrender is the only posture strong enough to actually receive something bigger than what your fist was already holding. Letting go of the outcome you'd already decided on isn't losing the negotiation. It's finally removing yourself from a courtroom you were never meant to argue in. And once your hand opens, really opens, not performed, not postured for effect, something shifts that no amount of gripping ever produced. The exhaustion in your fingers finally releases. The connection you were straining for through leverage arrives instead through nearness. Because it was never about the strength of your grip. It was about the willingness of your hand. You are not building a case. You are not the prosecution proving your suffering deserves a verdict. You are not required to earn the attention of someone who already signed the adoption papers before you were capable of doing anything to deserve them. There will still be moments your fingers curl back into old habits. That's not failure, that's just muscle memory catching up to a truth your spirit already believes. The goal was never a hand that's permanently perfect. It's a hand that keeps learning, every single time it clenches, how to open again a little faster than the last time. Think of it the way a hand relearns movement after it's been held tense for too long. At first the fingers resist, stiff from years of gripping, unfamiliar with the sensation of simply resting open. But slowly, with repetition, the stiffness fades. The hand remembers what it was actually built for, not to grip, but to receive, to hold, to be held. That's what's happening in you right now, whether you feel it yet or not. Each time you catch the clench and release it, the hand is relearning its original design. So here's the only thing left to do, and it's smaller than anything you tried before and infinitely more powerful. Uncurl your fingers, not toward what you're demanding. Toward what's already extended in your direction, waiting for a hand steady enough, open enough to receive it. The prayer that changes everything was never the loudest one. It was the one prayed with an open hand. And if that ache in your fingers just made sense for the first time, that's not coincidence. That's recognition. Keep sitting with what just opened. Because there's more waiting on the other side of that grip you've held for years, more than a closed fist could ever have carried.